In the vast expanse of the Masai Mara, where life operates by instinct, by the sun's heat, and the ancient rhythm of the hunt, stood an isolated research station. This was the domain of Dr. Johnson, a dedicated wildlife veterinarian who had committed his life to this land. He understood this rhythm better than most, a fragile balance of life and death. But on one particular morning, just before the true light of dawn broke, the typical silence was broken, not by the thunderous roar of a predator, but by a far more urgent, more deliberate sound, a persistent, soft thump against the old wooden door. It was 5 a.m. Dr. Johnson stepped outside, expecting a baboon or a stray gust of wind. But the sight that met him brought him to a stop. Standing alone, bathed in the first pale, golden light, was a lion cub. The young male, whom we would later call Leo, was no bigger than a golden retriever and less than 6 months old. Leo's solitary presence was a clear sign of tragedy. And when Leo looked up at him, not with fear, but with a look of desperate, urgent supplication, Dr. Johnson knew this was no accident. This was a plea. This was a small, fragile hand knocking on the door of humanity. The first and most fundamental rule when dealing with top predators is do not approach their young. A lion cub wandering alone near human dwellings usually means the mother is close by, and her protective instinct makes her ferociously aggressive and dangerous, a perfectly justified reaction. But Leo's behavior defied every piece of knowledge and experience Dr. Johnson had accumulated over the years. Leo neither growled nor backed away. Instead, he gently bowed his head, rubbing his nose lightly against the doctor's boot. A gesture as fragile as it was bold, almost a silent pledge of trust. Then he began to walk, but not flee. Leo would take a few steps and stop,
Leo.
turning his
right
head to
behind
look
you.
back at Dr. Johnson,
Lead the way.
as if urging him to follow.
They
Dr.
went this
Johnson
way. I
faced
have
a
to follow,
near
even if
impossible
it is
decision.
dangerous.
He was a scientist, trained to be cautious and data-driven. But he was also a man of deep empathy, capable of reading the wild's language. Leo was speaking clearly. Help me. Follow me. To ignore this plea would be to betray the very purpose of his life and work. He decided to risk everything, stepping out of his area of safety. He carried only a basic medical kit and a profound sense of responsibility. Dr. Johnson moved slowly, deliberately, keeping a safe distance behind the guiding cub. Leo led him off the familiar track and deeper into the dense acacia bush. The distance was nearly 3 kilometers, a significant journey for such a young animal. The trail was riddled with signs of struggle, small, scuffed paw prints, and occasionally a few remaining drops of moisture. Dr. Johnson noticed Leo's incredible stamina. He was not panicked, but intensely resolute. This was not a lost animal. He was a messenger on a critical mission. He realized that this small creature had navigated danger, remembered a safe haven, and acted with an intelligence few would credit in a 6-month-old cub. The story unfolding in his mind was staggering. A lion, a creature governed by pure instinct, consciously sought human intervention. This moment would not be defined by the jungle's roar, but by the quiet, desperate hope carried by a tiny predator. As they ventured deeper, the heat began to rise, and Dr. Johnson felt a mounting anxiety, not for himself, but for the tragedy that lay ahead. He gripped his binoculars, ready to face the consequences of following a broken-hearted guide. This journey was about to reveal the heartbreaking reason behind Leo's silent, early morning petition. Leo finally stopped in a small, concealed clearing, a place that reeked of danger and desperation. Dr. Johnson approached cautiously, using the thick brush for cover. And then, the heartbreaking scene the cub had worked so hard to describe unfolded before him. At the bottom of a deep pit, cunningly disguised by ruthless poachers to capture large game, lay a majestic lioness. It was Leo's mother. The pit was nearly 3 meters deep, with steep, slick sides, making escape impossible. The lioness was severely dehydrated, weakened by exhaustion and struggling, and worst of all, her left front leg was broken at an unnatural angle, confirming a complicated fracture. She was trapped, badly injured, and facing a slow, painful end. But the sheer tragedy was magnified by the subtle details surrounding the trap. Dr. Johnson saw tiny, desperate grooves clawed into the pit walls. Leo's futile attempts to dig his mother out. Even more astonishing were the carefully placed bundles of wet grass and water-soaked vegetation within the lioness's reach. The small creature, driven by pure love, had traveled to the nearby watering hole, saturated the grass, and brought it back to sustain his mother. It was an act of profound dedication, of sacrifice that transcended the bounds of instinct. Dr. Johnson grasped the full heroic magnitude of Leo's actions. He hadn't just stumbled to his door. Dr. Johnson recalled a successful rescue operation he had conducted with the Kenya Wildlife Service team about a month earlier, less than 3 kilometers from this location. Leo, likely hidden in the tall grass, must have observed the strange humans and their powerful machinery helping another animal. In his darkest hour, facing the imminent loss of his mother, he made a complex, rational connection. The humans in the silver Jeep helped last time. I must find them. It was a poignant testament to the intelligence and deep family bonds of these magnificent creatures. Now, the weight of responsibility bore down on Dr. Johnson. This was not just a rescue. It was the fulfillment of a promise made by a silent plea of hope. There was no time for contemplation. Dr. Johnson quickly found a safe vantage point and made the urgent call to the Specialized Veterinary and Anti-Poaching Unit of the Kenya Wildlife Service, KWS. Every passing minute was a life. The heat was intensifying, and the lioness's vitality was fading. It would take hours for the heavy equipment, the mobile crane, specialized cables, and tranquilizers to reach this remote location. During the agonizing 6-hour wait, Dr. Johnson did everything he could. He installed a small tube to gently provide water into the pit, keeping the lioness hydrated without causing additional stress. Meanwhile, Leo did not leave the area. He sat patiently, a tiny guardian, his eyes locked on his mother, occasionally glancing at Dr. Johnson, a look that shared the silent burden between man and animal. That steadfast presence was crucial. It helped keep the lioness's stress levels low, providing an essential psychological anchor. When the KWS team, led by Dr. James Wanjiku, finally arrived, the clearing erupted in a controlled chaos. This was a particularly dangerous operation. They had to sedate the massive lioness, but not too deeply, as lifting a nearly 200 kilograms predator out of a confined space required careful cooperation. The team worked with surgical precision, digging out the earth on one side of the pit to create a slight ramp, then expertly administering the tranquilizer. The defining moment was the lift, using a custom-designed harness to evenly distribute her immense weight. The crane slowly, meticulously, hoisted the powerful cat out of the earth's grip. As the lioness cleared the pit's edge, a collective sigh of relief went. She was free. Immediately, the team swarmed in, not just to stabilize her, but to perform complex, life-saving orthopedic field surgery under the blazing African sun. Leo, now safely contained, watched every movement, instinctively understanding that these were the helpers he had traveled nearly 3 kilometers to find. The rescue was only the beginning. The healing was the ultimate goal. With the lioness stabilized, her leg splinted and protected, the team continued to monitor her. The deepest moment came when Leo was released. He bolted immediately toward his mother, nuzzling into her with audible relief and unshakable loyalty. The lioness, though exhausted, responded with soft, reassuring licks. This brief reunion was the emotional core of the entire mission, the beautiful, undeniable reward for Leo's desperate bravery. After the lioness was fully stable following the field surgery, Dr. Johnson and the KWS team had to make a difficult decision. To ensure the complicated fracture healed fully and prevent infection, she needed to be transported to a nearby wildlife rehabilitation center. Releasing her back to the pride immediately was too risky. The team began preparations for her movement. By this time, Dr. James Wanjiku had located the rest of the Pride. As they approached the area, the Pride male and other members came forward, not in aggression, but exchanging soft growls and nose touches of shared grief. They understood what was happening. They had to accept this temporary separation for the sake of life. And then, the farewell moment. Before the mother was loaded into the specialized vehicle, Leo did something unforgettable. He turned back. He quickly walked a few steps toward Dr. Johnson, who was standing, watching the scene with mounting emotion. The cub stopped, looked him directly in the eyes, and then, with a soft purr, he gently pressed his small head into Dr. Johnson's outstretched hand. It was a conscious, powerful display of gratitude, a silent thank you, a promise of future reunion, before he followed the rest of the Pride as they moved away. 6 months later, at the rehabilitation center, the mother was fully recovered. In a carefully monitored operation, Dr. Johnson's team returned her to the Masai Mara region. The moment she stepped out of her enclosure and reunited with Leo and her Pride was a triumph not just of medicine, but of perseverance and faith. It was the happy ending Leo had bravely sought at 5 a.m. on that fateful morning. This story is not just about rescuing a lion. It's about what we share. It's about fierce protective love that knows no species and the profound intelligence that can move mountains. Or, in this case, motivated a brave cub to seek help from a complete stranger. It reminds us that every life is valuable, and sometimes the most desperate cries for help are the ones we must listen to most closely. It shows that when we extend compassion, the wild responds with trust. If this story of courage, connection, and hope touched your heart, and you believe in protecting the incredible bonds found in nature, please take a moment to hit the like button. Even better, join our growing community of wildlife protectors by hitting subscribe. We rely on supporters like you to fund the critical medical supplies and anti-poaching patrols that make complex rescues and rehabilitations like Leo's mother's possible. Check the link in the description to see how your contribution directly helps save a life. Thank you for caring, and thank you for watching.